Quick history, equipping you with knowledge of the past. Agriculture during the Industrial Revolution. Let's rewind to the early 1700s, roughly 50 years before the apparent reconstruction of Britain. Throughout the selected time period, 80% of the comparatively minute society flourished solely in the countryside by maintaining patches of farming land, merely sufficient to let the harvests supply themselves, the scarce surplus occasionally exchanged at the market. This, of course, wasn't very economical, but with the 1750s spike in population, the burden was overwhelmed upon agriculture to sustain the nation, thereby exposing substantial flaws upon the old cultivation procedures. For one, the traditionally acknowledged open farming or strip farming essentially forced innumerable land to convert as fallow, unused fields. In addition, considering farmers acquired land separately in strips, they misused expensive time travelling, often kilometres, to harvest and care for their animals at the common land, distant from their crop fields, suggesting disease and crossbreeds could spread undoubtedly from the likes of pigs and cows. Visibly apparent, this practice needed drastically enhancing to feed the infinite mounds. So much so that it summoned a new term into communal use: enclosure farming. Thoroughly down to the core, enclosure farming was based encompassing the idea of the more affluent farmer in the neighbourhood purchasing adjacent land from smaller growers and then fencing it off as a solitarily immense field for both crop and animal. This innovative classification of the farm allowed for ingenious concepts to spontaneously develop within the land to cater for a flourishing Britain. In turn, considering numerous farmers sold their land to the central yielder in their locality to form an enclosure, they either proceeded to work within the enclosure itself or relocated to one of the industrialized and evolving cities. After 1850, around 5 million acres of land became enclosed, meaning the significance of agriculture had strengthened immeasurably, and so had its goods. Corn and mutton's value had duplicated within the space of a century. On the whole, however, many industrial businessmen had received supplementary numbers of enthusiastic people, previous open field farmers, to serve in their factories, and the enclosure farmers were also observing benefit from the Industrial Revolution in terms of earnings, a double-win situation. When contemplating productive systems within agriculture, by the 1800s, three principal concepts had been revealed to enhance yields thanks to enclosure farming: four-course rotation, specialization, and selective breeding. The four-course rotation was a recommended practice that included producing 4 diverse crops in 4 separate fields over 4 years. The crops were wheat for bread, clover for rendering soil nutrients, barley and oats concerning beer and animal food, and turnips and sweets for cleansing soil and providing further feeds for cattle. This approach will be implemented every year, but annually the seeds will be swapped around on a different field than the previous, determining that every farming land will be equally full of good harvesting soil, not fallow, sequentially authorizing more extensive earnings every year, both feeding the nation and pocketing the farmers with plenty cash. Specialization was also readily used throughout Britain to meet consumer interests. For instance, a farm in Edinburgh would concentrate on just producing wheat on all operating land. Promptly, various regions became recognized for specific crops thanks to the explosion of the revolution, much like Devon is famous for cider apples. Regarding animals, a procedure used still to date was launched: selective breeding. This proposition, dating back to Charles Darwin, is based on and around the idea that exclusively breeding the most beneficial offspring, with the desired characteristics, together enables for bigger meat and wool-bearing animals to be born. In addition to the abundant concepts that arose due to enclosure farming, more surpassing tools for farmers developed in the light of the revolution. One example of machinery that engineered to save plentiful time and preserve produce was the seed drill, which sowed seeds and buried them back over into the soil to deter them from being undesirably digested by birds, permanently implementing profitable yields. In conclusion, it's significant to recognize that the Industrial Revolution in Britain considerably influenced agriculture, and consequently the countryside, primarily through population expansion, prompting raised demand. As a consequence, the Industrial Revolution is frequently referred to as the Agricultural Revolution. This requires the puzzle: how are the farmers ever to transport goods all across the nation? Look out for the next installment of this series. Subscribe, sound that notification bell, share, and give this video a thumbs up. Quick history.